Hey guys, today we're diving into some big news from the world of Street Outlaws. Scott Taylor is officially selling John Doe's powerhouse engine, a piece of racing history that has dominated the streets and the track for years. If you've been following Street Outlaws for a while, you know that John Doe is one of the most legendary small-tire cars to ever grace the show. This car has been through multiple engine transformations over the years, evolving with the ever-changing landscape of drag racing. Now, Scott Taylor is ready to part ways with its latest power plant, and we're here to break it all down. John Doe first made waves back in 2014 when Scott Taylor debuted with a single-carbureted big block Chevy, a 650 cubic inch monster that could hold its own on the streets. But Scott wasn't one to settle. He pushed for more power, upgrading to a 752 CI or 762 CI 5-inch bore space nitrous motor that turned John Doe into an absolute rocket. Then came the Procharger era. Scott swapped the nitrous setup for a Procharged big block Chevy, an aggressive move that proved just how far he was willing to take this car. But the evolution didn't stop there. Eventually, he went back to nitrous before making his biggest upgrade yet, a Procharged Brad Anderson HEMI. At this point, John Doe was running nearly the same engine setup as Scott's No Prep King's car, Track Doe. This meant 521 cubic inches of Brad Anderson-based HEMI power, a combination that made John Doe one of the fastest small-tire cars in the game. Whether on big tires or small tires, Scott Taylor knew how to make this car fly. But now, things are changing. Scott is selling this legendary engine, marking the end of another chapter in John Doe's history. So what does this mean? Well, for starters, someone is about to get their hands on an absolute beast of an engine. This Brad Anderson HEMI has been battle-tested, going head-to-head with some of the toughest competition out there. It's no secret that Scott Taylor was highly competitive on NPK with this setup before eventually upgrading to Pro-Line MH6 and now MH7 HEMIs. But just because NPK has moved forward doesn't mean this engine is outdated. In fact, this motor is still a monster, and in the right hands, it could be a serious threat in no prep, no time, or even radial racing. Just ask Monza. That's right, Scott Taylor sold one of these Brad Anderson engines to Monza, who is now running it in his split-bumper Camaro, another legendary Street Outlaws car. So if you've seen Monza's recent performances, you know just how capable this power plant still is. Now, the big question, what's Scott Taylor planning for John Doe? He's hinted that something special is coming, but what does that mean? Will he go back to a nitrous setup for old-school power? Or could he be preparing another Pro-Line HEMI, keeping the car as a backup for NPK? One thing is for sure, Scott Taylor always has a plan, and whatever he's got in store, you can bet it's going to be fast. In fact, Scott often brings John Doe along to NPK events, which raises another interesting possibility. Could he be using it as a spare for Track Doe? If something happens to his main car, having a backup Procharger HEMI-powered ride could be a smart move. If you're interested in buying this legendary piece of racing history, you'll need to act fast. Scott hasn't officially listed a price, but considering similar Brad Anderson HEMIs, you're probably looking at $30,000 to $40,000, depending on the setup and condition. And let's be honest, that's a steal for an engine that's proven itself at the highest levels of Street Outlaws competition. This isn't just a fast motor, it's a part of Street Outlaws history. If you're building a serious race car, this could be the game changer you've been looking for. Scott Taylor is turning the page on another chapter of his racing career, and that means an opportunity for someone else to step up and take this battle-tested Brad Anderson HEMI to new heights. With John Doe's engine now up for sale, it's a reminder of just how quickly the sport of drag racing evolves. The Street Outlaws are always pushing forward, always looking for the next big thing. And as Scott moves on to new projects and even more power, one lucky buyer is about to get their hands on a proven winner. So, if you're serious about owning a piece of Street Outlaws history, now's your chance. Hit up Scott Taylor, see what kind of deal you can work out, and get ready to unleash one of the most legendary power plants in the game. Engines like this don't come up for sale often, and when they do, they don't stay on the market for long. A Brad Anderson HEMI with a Procharger setup is a serious weapon, capable of delivering massive power with consistency, a key factor in the unpredictable world of no prep and small tire racing. Anyone looking to compete at a high level needs a reliable and proven engine, and this one has already gone rounds in some of the toughest fields. Whether it ends up in another street-raced outlaw car or a full-on-track beast, it's guaranteed to keep turning heads and lighting up the scoreboards. Let's talk about why this particular Brad Anderson HEMI is such a sought-after piece of equipment. For starters, it's already tuned and dialed in for extreme performance. This isn't a brand new, untested build, it's an engine that's been run, refined, and raced at the highest levels. It's battle-proven, which means whoever buys it won't have to go through months of testing just to get it right. It's already ready to win. With Scott Taylor moving to Pro-Line MH7 engines, it's clear that the level of competition in No Prep Kings is evolving fast. Teams are constantly upgrading to stay ahead of the curve, and engines that were once considered cutting-edge are now being sold off as racers push for even more power. But that doesn't mean these engines are outdated. It just means that for NPK's highly specialized and ever-changing rule set, drivers need every last advantage. This Brad HEMI would still be an absolute monster in any other type of racing where the weight rules aren't as strict, or where bracket racing, radial racing, or outlaw no prep allow more freedom in setup. One of the biggest questions surrounding John Doe's future is whether Scott Taylor might take it back to its nitrous roots. Nitrous was a dominant force in the early days of Street Outlaws, and while power adders like Prochargers and turbos have taken over in recent years, there's still a strong argument for going back to spray. With no boost lag and instant power, a nitrous-fed John Doe could be a serious contender in small tire racing once again. Scott Taylor has always been smart about his racing program, and keeping multiple cars ready to go is a big part of his success. Many top racers carry backup cars and engines, especially in high-stakes competitions like NPK. If his main car, Track Doe, has issues, he could easily swap motors or even jump into John Doe as a second option. Whether he decides to make it a backup, a test bed, or a full-blown race car again, John Doe is far from done. Scott's decision to sell this engine isn't just about his own program, it also opens the door for other racers to step up their game. Whether it's an established Street Outlaws competitor or an up-and-coming racer, whoever gets their hands on this HEMI is going to have a serious advantage. And with Monza already running the other Brad Anderson HEMI from Scott, we could see more Street Outlaws veterans using similar setups to chase wins. With the rise of Street Outlaws drivers competing in pro-mod races, it's worth considering whether this engine could be a contender in that world as well. Pro-mods demand high horsepower, durability, and tunability, all of which this engine has in spades. While Scott is focused on bigger and better things, someone else might be able to take this power plant and turn it into a pro-mod powerhouse, especially with the right chassis and tuning setup. No matter what happens next, John Doe's legacy isn't going anywhere. This car has been a fan favorite for nearly a decade, proving that Scott Taylor is one of the most versatile and strategic racers in the game. Whether John Doe gets a new nitrous-fed heart, a backup Pro-Line HEMI, or something entirely different, one thing is certain: Scott Taylor isn't done making waves in the world of No Prep Kings and Street Outlaws. Keep an eye on what he does next, because it's going to be fast, loud, and full of surprises.